Lads, we're back.
Yep. Still here.
We're David Backus.
No.
That's going to be Daniel's thing, isn't it? Trying to come up with hockey player puns.
I don't know.
I'm gonna run out though.
Where we limit our discussion on the royal family.
And the Minnesota Wild.
And the Minnesota, yeah.
No, after last week, we're clearly a Minnesota Wild fan podcast at this point. You know, they went home with all our half-season awards, according to a certain member of the
show. It's fun though. They're a fun team, aren't they? Like I think, and this is just not a bias thing, but like they're one of the most exciting teams this year. Like, remember where we ranked them?
Dumpster fire, didn't we?
Yeah.
Off-season review.
Yeah, and then what's pretty funny is because what they got for Eric Stahl is Marcus Johansson, and he's not even in the lineup.
I don't know if that's a rousing endorsement to get people into the Minnesota. Well, they lost this trade before the season even started.
Yeah.
I think all you have to say to make people watch Minnesota is Kirill Kaprizov.
Capo Kokkonen.
Cap.
Ryan Hartman switched into becoming a center. I think,
Jared Spurgeon,
great captain. He scored last night. First goal in 26 games.
I wouldn't say that Jared Spurgeon is must-watch TV. He's the guy you appreciate what he does, but you don't. He's not a flashy.
Ryan Suter, underrated.
Also not a flashy player.
Underrated.
Matt Dumba, good player. Fun player to watch. Probably.
Carlson Soucy, underrated.
Might be suspended.
I know. Man, Lawson Krause. I just
remember him.
I know he's not on the dock, but he used to be a fan favorite of mine in 2015.
He was a reclamation project. I wrote a hoopla about him being drafted. It was like, is he the next bust? Is this everyone still trying to find the next big power forward? And he's somewhere in between right now.
Has that evaporated already? Like the search for the next great power forward?
Well, I think what's happening is teams are trying to find answers to Tom Wilson, and it's clearly very difficult because obviously the salary cap's not going up, but there's not many guys like Tom Wilson.
Yeah.
I think what you hope to do, and we've started to see this, is you get a player like, if we look at a Patrick Laine, right? The frame and the ability there is, to use his physicality, right? But you didn't draft him just for that. You could see his frame when he was a teenager, but you knew that his first thing was going to be offense. And, when he was traded out of Winnipeg, Paul Maurice said, that's a guy who could be a big power forward. Austin Matthews doesn't quite use his body as much as I think some people would like him to, but you didn't draft him for that. But when he starts using that, like in the body, he could be a fantastic, like power forward sniper type guy. Because like really, he's like a much better version of Rick Nash, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Not the reach, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. It just, when I look back on like, I guess the modern era with things where, this is probably like small speculation or something, but when a guy isn't a point per game guy in the OHL and he still goes in the top 15 of the draft.
Well, I mean,
and he's a forward.
The top 15 of the draft is less and less Canadians nowadays anyway.
Mm-hmm. But like when you look back on 2015, like a guy like Lawson Cross went 11th.
And that was a reach too. People weren't excited about that pick.
Because he was ranked 8th going into the draft.
This was 2015, correct?
Yeah.
Oh.
Big burly man. Yeah. I don't know.
My last thing on Lawson Krause, because I didn't think I was going to talk about him today, but I don't know. I wanted him to do well. Like he had the 20, 30 points last few seasons, but this year he has like 3 points.
Yeah.
And he's been running after people
Arizona,
to fight them.
Yeah. They're a family in Arizona. Didn't you know? The Yotes pack.
You know who also said that?
No.
Doug Armstrong? Or
Lou Lamoriello when he was with the Devils.
What, they're a family?
They're a family. That's why everyone took pay cuts.
You know what the Devils kind of remind me of, how they're not allowed to show individualism. You kind of go for the logo instead of the individual. They're kind of just like the royal family. You can't be a character. You have to do everything you do for them. You cannot take a stance. The New York now the New York Islanders are basically like the royal family.
This is the first time I've heard you talk about the royal family.
True.
Adam.
Oh,
That's true.
I know, but if you think about it, I think that's a very good comparison that I've just connected. Lou Lamoriello was the queen.
Okay.
There we go. All about the courtesies, but we don't really know what Lou Lamoriello was like as a person.
Sure.
We never will, too. Except the time apparently in college he tried to fight a referee. Thanks, Brian Burke, for that.
All right. Keeping with the Hudson River teams, Ralph Krueger.
Daniel, you just ruined my transition. God
Did
damn
I?
it.
Did I take the
Yes.
transition from you?
Yes,
I ran
you
with
did.
it.
February 23rd. Does that date mean anything to you guys?
No.
Not at all.
That's when we thought everything was okay and we saw each other in
No.
person.
No. This is
So
February
2021 or 2020?
2021. February.
2021.
Yes.
We were probably doing this or schoolwork.
That was the last time the Sabres won a game.
Wow.
February 23rd. And it was a 4-1 win over New Jersey. Now their 12th straight loss was in New Jersey, and that led finally to the firing of head coach Ralph Krueger earlier today. Before we get straight into this, do you guys know who scored the last goal of Ralph Krueger's tenure as the Sabres coach?
I do.
Do you know who it was, Daniel?
Let's take a stab at this.
Okay.
Jake McCabe.
It was Jeff Skinner. The man who he just put on the fourth line, benched. Jeff Skinner, ladies and gentlemen. So we all saw this coming. I think we all sort of thought that this was a bit overdue. I don't even think this is the first of massive stretch of games that Krueger has lost since becoming the head coach in Buffalo. Listen, an interim has been named. I'm not going to name him because no one knows who the guy is. You know why? Because Buffalo don't have any staff. They are probably the thinnest staffed team in the league because, as I tweeted, and Daniel read earlier before we started recording and then liked it. Thank you, Daniel. Do we all forget the bloodletting before the season started in Buffalo? How? And again, it looks more and more likely that Jack Eichel is gone. Like he is not going to play another game in the Sabres uniform. How do you fix things there? Like what happens next for Buffalo?
There's two sides. Like you can't. Like right now it is very difficult. We're halfway through the season. What is possibly going to change? If this is why for me there's two sides here. It's I don't know, like, why did you, like, what is the point? Like, okay, so I get it. You're getting rid of Ralph Krueger for the sake of getting rid of Ralph Krueger, because clearly he has lost the room. He has lost 12 straight games. He has lost everything. But who is going to come in here and clean up this mess?
No one's going to do it this year. They can't afford it.
Oh, sure, but it's the summer. What head coach in their right? Like we already saw, Gerard Gallant didn't even want to go to New Jersey because for whatever reason, probably something to do with having to start from the bottom once again. Why would he go to Buffalo? Probably like same reason. And if anything, it's worse in Buffalo. You're about to get rid of a franchise altering player because it's been what, 6 years now trying to build around this guy. Who else is going to come in? Well, Mike Babcock's not coming back to the league anytime soon.
I don't know about that.
You think they paid Ralph Krueger $3.9 million. What do you think Mike Babcock would ask for?
7.5.
Well,
That's just on top of my head.
You can ask, right? Because wouldn't it have to be during, like, in the frames of his current contract that runs with the Leafs still? And then the question becomes, what do the Leafs retain out of it?
I think they can technically still pay him more than what his contract is currently worth. I think. I'm not 100% sure on that. But if I'm Mike Babcock, again, this is a very different situation than when he almost signed in Buffalo. years ago. If I'm Mike Babcock, why would I go to Buffalo?
Well, I guess that goes to the question: where else could he go? But first, Daniel, your thoughts on Krueger being let go in Buffalo. What's funny for you guys, for those of you who don't really understand how big a 12-game losing streak is, besides the fact it's a lot of games. That's about like just over an eighth of in a normal season. Here we are in a condensed season, 56 games. They have technically lost 21% of their games this season, technically, on this streak alone, Daniel.
Yeah, and we've mentioned it before where I think the funny thing is we talk about the support system of Connor McDavid, but then we think about Jack Eichel and how nice does it look in Edmonton comparatively to what's going on in Buffalo? Because my first instinct is, all right, you messed up. You didn't, you built something on shaky foundation really anywhere in the organization. So it's all about gutting everything and rebuilding. But again, that's the same narrative they've had the last 7 years, that they went for the higher picks. They went for, different approaches in coaching, different approaches in management. And it's the same result every time. That I don't understand what it is. It is just like the whole culture of it everywhere, because I look at this where it's a team that I think that they have their blessings here and there, but they never know how to like it's like it, in a way it gets cursed in a way. Like, for example, they got Jeff Skinner pennies on the dollar, excellent season, and then they pay him and look what happens to him now. And then Jack Eichel, they technically didn't win the Connor McDavid sweep days, but they got a guy who would have been first overall in any other draft, and they didn't do anything with it. And then Rasmus Dahlin, and then we could go. The list goes on where Rasmus Ristolainen, where they've held on to him too long. They've kind of not really committed to him in any way. And how do you expect a team to kind of perform like that, where they just don't see an actual end to any of this, like an actual goal that they have to meet, because it's the same thing every season?
Think of it like, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, go.
Think of it like this now. If we talk about tearing it down to the bone, that's what they did to get Eichel, and they never recovered. They don't have scouting staff anymore. They don't have developmental staff anymore. Where does it go now?
Well, sorry. Nowhere.
Yeah.
The thing is, they are so far behind and they are so down the lineup. Look at how they've ran how the organization has been run over the last few years. It's not been filled with people who have experience. I'm sorry, I'm all for giving people new opportunities here, but Kevin Adams has no assistant general managers. So Jason Botterill was never a general manager. I understand he worked under Jim Rutherford for that period of time, but there's a difference between being an assistant general manager, whether you're the scouting guy or whether you're the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton Penguins guy, and being a general manager, negotiating contracts worth millions of dollars. There's a difference there, right? And we've seen it multiple times in the past. What they should have done, what the Pegula should have done before, is put someone with major experience to deal with this. Just like the Leafs did it with Lou Lamoriello, just like teams have done it like the Oilers did with Ken Holland. Put someone in there who knows what they're who's had some type of experience. You can't throw a new guy in there and expect everything to magically fix itself.
A president of hockey ops, like a Brian Burke, for example, would actually be a really, really good fit there. If Ottawa couldn't get one, though, what chance do Buffalo have now? And
Exactly.
With no money.
Not even just with no money. They're too far down. They've dug themselves into a hole that's going to be very difficult to take themselves out of.
it's been like a history thing with them though. Like the Sabres have just been it's been happening to them for like how long, where I realized that, 11, 15 years ago, they did have a solid core. But again, like these guys left and then they rode on Ryan Miller way too long. And then even if you go further back to it, they had Dominic Hasek in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't keep him. He didn't want to stay. And it's another thing where these guys never really want to commit there. And I'm not saying, Jack Eichel, I really applaud him for what he's been able to do there the last 6 years. What he's been able to kind of like, have those elite numbers despite the lack of support, despite the fact that you don't really have any stability there because the roster keeps changing, the coaches keep changing.
How many coaches has he had? I wonder.
I say 6. I don't know.
Because we talked about last week, Dahlin, whenever Krueger gets his new, would be his third already, and he was drafted 2018, I want to say. Because it was him, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi. Buffalo, man, they lose in every department, including stuff like college free agents, and we got to talk about one of those guys right now. Goodbye, Jimmy Vesey. He was claimed off waivers by the Canucks. Our sympathies go out to Mike, who was just heartbroken.
Just absolutely heartbroken
that he's gone to Vancouver.
There were glimpses there. I don't know. The first game when he scored of the season, I said, yeah, it's going to work out. And then things kind of went as they did. And then he had that 2-goal game.
Yep.
And I said, there's hope. But I think this was a aspect of this relationship that he was there for the moment in our life, but he wasn't our forever.
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised he got claims, by the way.
Same, kind of.
It's weird with those NCAA guys, right? Like you never actually know. Like it's a weird trajectory when it comes to. All right, when are the Stars going to start not having the yellow in them anymore with the potential?
Well, solid NHL game reference there, Daniel. So I was looking at Colorado this year, and I was thinking they're not quite as dominant as I thought they were going to be, right? Then Daniel puts a little thing in I think it was Daniel who put something in the doc, right? About them being injured. And I was like, oh, okay, let's look at this. I forgot Eric Johnson has been on LTIR for what feels like forever. Their backup goalie, Pavel Francouz. Meanwhile, also on the injury reserve, Cale Makar and Bowen Byram. Cale Makar, the rookie of the year last year, by the way. Despite that, though, I believe since McKinnon's been back from injury, I don't think they've lost. And they kind of curb stomped the Ducks last night.
Oh my gosh. I made that joke. Remember the first period? Like the Ducks scored 50% of their season goals already.
Yep.
One game. And then, my gosh. Like, I thought things were going to not even turn around. I thought, like, if they lost 5-4, I'd be like, okay, it's a typical Ducks game. But to make it 8-4, it's ridiculous. Like 3 games ago, they lost 6-1 against the Sharks.
The funny thing is I think it was a close game at one point, but then I think Colorado scored, it was like 5 or 6 straight in the second and third.
Yeah, the 7th goal was empty netter. And then the 8th goal was because the Ducks took a late penalty and then Brendan Saad scored.
I kind of love how Colorado were relentless there. Brendan Saad, by the way, he's up to 10 goals. What a pickup. It's funny Chicago have lost that trade twice. Well, then, since we're right there, then we might as well talk about the Ducks, who are not doing well, we can say.
I mean, that's one way of putting it.
I mean, John Gibson has himself been very outspoken about the way the season has gone. They don't really. I still don't know what exactly Anaheim are, because I think we talked about it a bit before the season, and Daniel, you've definitely talked about this, like how some of their depth lines have just been juggled different players. Why did we still guys like Derek? Why did Derek Grant get a 3-year contract?
That's the thing. Bob Murray, I think he assumed that. I think there's 2 things going on here. is he assumed that they were going to be competitive because they still have a lot of quality pieces there, right? It just, I know they don't have like the legitimate stars anymore, or they just don't have that type of consistency that they had in the past. And the second thing is he, like, for what Bob Murray's been able to do, and I know like he's not doing a good job right now, but I cannot lie when I say that he's drafted so well without like a top 3 pick that I think that got to him. That got to him to the fact that I just need to be more patient with these guys that I like. You know, Troy Terry was a 5th round pick. That like all these guys that like Maxime Contal was late in the 2nd round. Like it's all these type of guys that these guys are gonna make it happen. But he just assumed that we have to give them minutes to develop, and then you know they're carry the team. But I see them more as guys that are gonna complement a Trevor Zegras in the future. It's not gonna be something now where it's like I got to stay competitive with these guys.
I was going to look at their cap friendly quickly. Do you know? I think this is a really quick thing. We can move on from this in a second. Do you know the current cap space of the Washington Capitals? Like right this second?
Is it negative?
It's $10.
Oh,
Like not 10,000,
$10.
not 100, $10 is their current cap space. $10. Anyway, well then we gotta start talking about. If we look at like certain trade scenarios, we'll wait until we talk about the Ducks in their specific division. Yeah. I keep wanting to say the Pacific. They're in the West, right? Or are they in the Central this year?
They're in the West Honda division.
They play in the Honda Center too. This was really their.
Funny.
Yeah. Did you know that the Ducks have never selected higher than 6th, Alex?
I think so. Someone would have to remind me.
They've never had a 1st overall pick.
I was reading,
They were that
I
close.
saw this one. I remember listening to Brian Burke say back in the day when he sent down Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf because the team was just so bad. And I know at the beginning of the season we were clamoring for Trevor Zegras to get the shot, but at this point, I don't know if he should be around this because they are bad. And I think this is a lot more than just Josh Manson being out too.
Yeah, and Hampus Lindholm kind of teetering off.
Mm-hmm. It is a horrible situation.
Never forget about the LTIR of Ryan Kessler, by the way.
Yeah. They I mean, like any team, it's bound to happen with this. It's just the one thing that really irked me was that Bob Murray was going to go into deadline looking for 24 to 27-year-olds to fill his roster. That get draft picks, get prospects. This is not the time to kind of assume that you're going to finish like 11th again. Like you're going to try to like end up somewhere where it's just not going to be good, where it's just going to be another assortment of bad contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What on this team can you trade?
All I could think of right now is Ricard Raquel.
Want to trade because the value is apparently too high.
Who else is there? Like Troy Terry. I don't know. Like it's just I know that he's been on the hot seat a bit, but I'd like to keep him on the Ducks. It's just these guys that I don't know. Like the stability isn't there like it used to be, where you would able to bring in these young guys and then you'd help them along the way. Like like what Ricard Raquel or Hampus Lindholm kind of got to experience, or even to like a Isaac Lundestrom towards like the tail end of the Ducks competing. You just don't have that anymore, where you'll bring in a bunch of these young guys, but like I really look at Ryan Getzlaf as the leader and that's it. But the thing is, I don't know where he's at right now because he hasn't been vocal about anything, and he's obviously frustrated with what things are going on. But at the same time, you're getting $8 million. You're not getting moved.
Well, that, and I'm sure they want to keep him for legacy's sake. You linked to it, an Athletic article, and they were talking about Ryan Miller. Apparently, he shut down a trade to San Jose, which, by the way, I love how San Jose's goalie solutions have been like Dubnik and Johnny Ryan Miller, by the way. That's hilarious. The Ducks, though, maybe we'll look at specific trade possibilities this Sunday, next Sunday, the Sunday after that. We don't know yet because we haven't
All the
decided
Sundays.
which division we're doing next, but we will. Maybe after the show. We'll see. We've been very negative to start the show, I'm realizing. Very negative. So I think we talk about some positives here. And by that, I of course mean congratulations. We're back to the Ovechkin watch.
No.
Alexander Ovechkin has hit 1,300 points and 718 goals. He now has sole possession of sixth place all-time in goal scoring. A word, lads, on the increasing legacy of Alexander Ovechkin.
I mean, I feel like we've said this so many times before. Probably most definitely probably the greatest goal scorer of all time. I don't know. Like, I feel like I got to write this down and need to save it every time he passes another milestone because it just keeps coming. You put him in the same spot, it will work no matter what. It's incredible.
Daniel.
I'm gonna borrow from James Myrtle with the record and say he does it. I don't know. I'm a believer in Alexander Ovechkin. I think when we think about like veteran teams, I think the Capitals have been able to kind of supplement their veteran core in a way. Like they've hit their draft picks pretty well. So I think in terms of a support system to help them get there, I think they're going to be okay. But I don't know. Like, I think looking too far ahead with that, I'd like to also just kind of say that I just want to enjoy the present Alexander Ovechkin. I just want to say that, like we lived in this era where one of the greatest goal scorers was there. And the fact that he's 35 or he's going to turn 35, right?
He's old.
I don't know. I just want to keep appreciating like what he's been able to do regardless of the age, that he could keep on going. Like, it reminds me of a Pavel Datsyuk where like he could still carry a line at 35, 36, that I just still want to see that consistency there and just enjoy it for what it is.
13 more goals, so he goes to Marcel Dion for top 5 in goal scoring, by the way.
It is extremely unfortunate that COVID got rid of the last 20 games of a season. He's missed a season and a half due to lockouts.
Without them, he's in striking range right now.
Yeah, for sure. No question.
You can add, to be safe, let's say minimum, he should have another 70 goals on his belt right now. 70, 75-ish. Because he was going to score 50 last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Ovechkin's not going to score at least 5, maybe 6 in the last 20 games of last season.
Yeah.
You know what? He'll. I was talking to Mike about this. I think he'll at least beat Howe. Like, he'll get to 800.
Yeah, I think so as well.
It's gonna take a lot. But you know what? Hopefully, this is why I want to go back to old divisions, just so he can feed on the lower teams. I'm okay if he lights up the Habs for a time. I want to see him get there. I really do. Carey, you know what? Carey probably should be at the ceremony that he gets. Well, like if he passes Gretzky, because Carey was in net for a few of those. Carey definitely. Who was Eddie Lack tweeted? Like, if not for me, you'd be 15 goals behind right now. Alexander Ovechkin.
Not wrong.
And another story with him, an unrestricted free agent this year. See that.
They'll figure it out.
He's probably gonna do like I'm gonna say 2-year pack. He's gonna do the Steve Yzerman after. He's gonna just do like 1 year contracts after that.
With Montreal. Exactly.
In my game, I think he went to Minnesota in my video game in NHL 21.
They never in the NHL games he never gets signed. So I think like after that first year, I think everyone who plays it signs him.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm gonna go, and then you normally win a cup or two. Yeah. All right. 31 Thoughts is a great podcast and a great article. I want to refer specifically to the podcast that came out on Monday. And we're going to talk about a few points here. First off, and this is all from Elliot Friedman, obviously. Talked about the fact that Eric Staal is probably not a Canadian division solution. And by that means this kind of makes sense when you think about it. Because when it came to Eric Staal out of Minnesota in the past few years, every time we've heard about him being available, once we actually get Eric Stahl's take, he's always said, yeah, I don't really want to get traded. And the 14-day quarantine is probably going to be a little bit of an issue there. Kind of wish Elliot had said this before our trade deadline preview show, but I'll take it anyway. God damn it. So maybe Mikael Granlund is a better third-line solution for the Leafs. That, and he's not convinced that Rickard Rakell is going anywhere because the price may be too high. Maybe you guys have a thought on these two centermen / Rakell. Can also play wing, but for value's sake, we say centerman. These two guys probably not being an option for Canadian teams.
Well, the thing with the idea behind Stahl not being a Canadian division solution would then, I mean, with the exception of him not wanting to be traded, which I guess if I'm Buffalo, I kind of listen to, the issue is then Granlund's also like this 14-day quarantine is going to be an issue for anyone outside of the Canadian division, right? Anyone coming outside to in. I mean, if Elliot Friedman said it, then I guess he's right. So, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to dispute Elliot Friedman. This is not happening on this podcast. But with Rickard Rakell, I think it goes back to what Daniel was like saying before. It's like Bob Murray is literally looking for guys between 24 and 27, and Rickard Rakell is 27. I don't agree necessarily with what Bob Murray is doing. And I think to answer your question that you asked before about what is Anaheim, it fully depends on who you ask. Bob Murray would say, I don't even know what Bob Murray's answer would be, but I mean, listen, like, how high is the price?
Mm-hmm.
I think the teams are just playing hard to get. I think you don't want to dispel your whole plan right now. And I think something's still going to happen. Like when they mentioned the Jake Muzzin trade, you know, there was speculation where, like, I guess on everybody with the Kings, but it wasn't kind of like, we're going to, dart in on this one guy for 2 weeks before he gets traded. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it was a good price. You know, I was sad to see my boy Carl Grundstrom get traded, but that was the price that was set.
It's funny you bring that up. Everyone wasn't talking. No one who's talking about Jake Muzzin, the trade from the Kings. Everyone was talking about Alec Martinez, but I didn't feel like there was a lot of talk about Jake Muzzin.
I just remember when the Kings just came out, like Rob Blake, and said, like, no one is kind of like, not even like, this sounds so ominous, like no one is safe, but no one is kind of like an exemption on what he wanted to build with the Kings.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you bring up Jake Muzzin because Freeman has also said, again, would have loved this before I made a super trade, Elliot, but apparently the price for Matthias Ekholm is like the Muzzin deal, and that would be a first-round pick and 2 prospects. Can't wait for everyone to start doing trade suggestions of their 2 worst prospects in the first-round pick.
Ryan Poehling. And
I'm pretty sure that was in my trade last week.
Hold on a minute. What are you trying to say about Ryan Poehling?
Solid guy.
Yeah, what are you trying to say? I put him in my Ekholm trade last week, okay?
He's a centerman, big body. They love those guys. Anyway.
Ryan Poehling and Jan Mysak and a first-round pick.
They've been looking for a centerman for multiple years. Come on, this is perfect.
How long have the Predators been in the league?
Good question.
Wasn't it 2000?
Well, they've been looking for first-line centers.
Oh, no, David Legwand was what, 1998?
I don't know.
It's been a long time. How about that?
Yeah.
Since David Legwand was drafted, they've been looking for a first-line center. Okay. And on the Ekholm note, the teams that Freeman reports are interested. Winnipeg, which we all kind of saw coming. It is honestly the worst thing that can happen to the teams we all cheer for. Well, Daniel, Leafs fan on the side. Kind of.
I've always been a Leafs fan.
Yeah, but we kind of push you to be a Ducks fan here.
What? Don't tell me who to be.
Tearing me apart, Lisa. Solid room reference. Oh, hi, Mark. Anyway, so Winnipeg, which would suck for Toronto and Montreal. Boston, which is just so typical.
which would also suck for Toronto and Montreal
Yes. Yeah.
next year.
Yeah. There are questions about Toronto, Montreal, and Philly. Philly, because if Carter Hart doesn't pick it up, Philly are boned completely. And apparently there is some they could look at doing it if they had some expansion stuff figured out at the same time. He's heard that Montreal are interested, but at the same time, some people have also told him that they aren't. So we don't know. And again, it's like New York, Islanders, Toronto, and Montreal, those markets you really don't get a lot from. But Bergevin did downplay boosting up the defense in his press conference. Do I believe him? No. And then Toronto, because he talked about the ice time. And I was like, no. But anyway, questions about Toronto, Montreal, and Philly, and Winnipeg and Boston, they're definitely there. I think all of those teams are franchises that could very much benefit from getting a Matthias Ekholm. And if Winnipeg get him,
I don't even want to think about it.
My brain, not my heart, my brain is telling me we're having a Leafs Jets series in the finals of the Canadian division. And I think Winnipeg's chances of winning this division are going up a lot because Ekholm is a difference maker. And he is the exact player that Winnipeg needed.
Do they can play the right side?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yes. No, but he can't. Apparently he's played the right side in the past. So
he's like a TJ Brody.
It does fit, right? I think on Sunday we were saying we were looking for a partner for Josh Morrissey. And I mean, listen, if you want to play Sammy Niku and Logan Stanley, I believe they're both left-handed. If you don't want to get rid of one of them or play them on their offside, here's Matthias Ekholm, who can do both.
Mm-hmm. And I think Friedman was also talking about, I think he got this from me, honestly, that he looked at David Savard as a sort of cheaper version of Ekholm, which is exactly what I said in our player bios and on the show. I am so proud of that. Okay. Anything else you guys want to mention about Ekholm? Maybe it will make sense or something. I don't know.
No, it's okay.
That's one that's definitely gonna, I don't know. By us talking about it enough, I already know that we're driving up the price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Precisely. You know what, guys? The trade deadline may honestly just be one trade, and it may just be Ekholm, and it's going to be pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. Pretty excited.
I have this feeling that, do you remember when Martin Hansel was traded from Arizona to Minnesota? And that was insane. Like, that was insane because he was a UFA. He was never a top 6 guy. And like the Wild gave up like a first, a second, and like a prospect for him. And I have a feeling that with all the speculation, you're going to see something like that. Like a guy who's like a middle 6 center because he's a center, or like a right-hand shot is just going to go for a lot.
And then he's going to get a $5 million deal from, was that San Jose who gave it to him?
Dallas.
Dallas, yes. God, Martin Hansel. I remember that was a weird year. Was that the year Rabada was traded to Vancouver? Or am I thinking of I think it
was Thomas Vanek that year that got traded to Vancouver.
Vanek? To Vancouver?
Or not Vancouver. Vancouver traded him to Columbus for like Tyler Mott.
When the hell was Vanek? There were those couple of years where Vanek was being dealt every other year.
Mm-hmm. I always remember him as a Canadian, though.
Good thing one of us do. Okay, Leafs and Habs. Stuff to talk about. It'd be nice if I could talk. There's stuff to talk about with both these teams. Both GMs spoke. We're about halfway through the season. The Leafs are in a bit of a down slump. The Canadians got a big win. 2 different sides and 2 very different press conferences, by the way. I will add between Dubas and Berge. Berge very much keeping his cards up his sleeve, I feel, and Dubas very much saying like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and I'm prepared to do this, this, and this. So I guess we can start with the GM conferences themselves. And I guess we'll start with Dubas's because, well, we know that the Leafs are apparently willing to trade a top prospect. And Kyle Dubas also said apparently most of their intentions right now, not all of them, most of them are on forward help, which is very interesting in my opinion.
Well, that's because Rasmus Sandin is untouchable.
Like the movie.
which says a lot.
Yeah, I if I don't know, man. I don't know. If then how about this? I wonder then, because people were talking about Philip Forsberg, if maybe that's the move they're looking at now.
I think Dubas made it seem, because of the flat cap, that
He did say a rental, yeah.
Mhm.
he's more likely to go for a rental. But I don't know. Like, I don't believe him. I don't necessarily believe that he's just looking at rent, like that rentals is the main priority, because that's never been his go-to move.
Because yeah, I agree with Alex that there is a bit of that what is James Myrtle called, the bargain bin finds
Mhm.
that he's been able to kind of really really find a bit of gold there. And again, like I think maybe I'm just too fixated on it, but it's just I don't see a defensive prospect going the other way. I'd say a Rodion Amirov before I'd say like Erasmus Sandin.
I sorry, but there is no way that you're trading a Mirov before you trade Lilligren. At this point, I don't believe that.
Well, the question is, how much value does Liljegren have across the league? That's what the issue is, because I think there's still Leaf fans out there who still value Timothy Liljegren. I don't think he's going to be what everyone expected when he was drafted, right? Because when he was drafted, the whole idea was, wow, we got he dropped how many spots because he had a bad season. He had mono, and he dropped to, I think they drafted 15 or 16 around there that year.
17th.
17.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, like, it clear, like the NHL games clearly don't know what they're talking about. He doesn't have that much value. I just want to put that start with that, which isn't a very good comparison. But I don't believe him that he's just looking at rentals. And Daniel brings up a good point with the bargain bin stuff, because when he got here and he said, we can and we will, when he said, we're going to sign all these guys, he put himself in the situation where he has to be good at finding the bargains. And, some of the signings haven't worked out. Unfortunate. But some of them have. He has to find them.
Well, then
I think.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. Like I'm just again, like we've already had an established template based on based on the depth chart you see of the Leafs prospects. And I have the list right now where I think the key to all of this, and if Rodion Amirov is too much of a stretch, like I think there's those type of guys where they're in the Sean Dursey, they're in the Carl Grundstrom kind of range of things, that they're more of those supporting guys that you attach to that first round pick. So I think the key to it is the draft picks.
It makes sense actually. I'm thinking here, because if you are willing to trade a top prospect, do you want to do it for a rental?
No.
Like, especially, I'm thinking of top forwards who have 1 year left this season. And I'm thinking, okay, Kyle Palmieri, okay. If I'm the Leafs, do I want to? He's a good player, obviously, having a bad year, but the guy's offensive numbers speak for themselves. But would you rather than pay the price, if you have to give up a top guy, to rather get Forsberg and get the extra year? If you have to give up more, yeah, but it fits your window. And again, like giving up too much for a real difference maker on that team, it doesn't quite add up.
The only way you're signing a guy who is currently a UFA is if you have an extension in place. Just like people were bringing up the Mark Stone trade and the Max Pacioretty trade, because they were technically rentals, right? Because when the trade was made, they were a UFA at the end of the season. But the thing we have to remember is that they were signed the day of. When Max Pacioretty, was he not signed either that day or a week or two later?
Yeah, it was around the same time. Yeah.
Like Mark Stone was traded and literally signed the same day. Those aren't comparables here. Unless they trade for Eric Stahl or whoever and they sign them the same day, I don't expect Kyle Dubas to give up a top prospect for a guy who's going to play the back half of a 56 game season and one playoff run.
Yeah.
Because it's never been done, or it's rare. Like even Taylor Hall.
I was about to say that.
Those
yeah.
weren't top prospects.
Because I guess the comparison here is that this happens a lot in baseball where because they can't trade draft picks during the season. So what's up happening is your prospects are really your only capital. So you'll see for teams that really want to win the World Series, like they're trade like 3 of their top prospects for like 1 legitimate all-star.
Mm-hmm.
But in hockey, there have been the moves like, I don't know. I don't know why I keep thinking about this, but for the time and how good he was at the time, like Thomas Vanek is a comparable, but at the same time, that was because the Sabres were running out of time. Not the Sabres, the Islanders were running out of time.
The last big trade I can think of, like real deadline, get me going, this is exciting stuff, is Tampa getting McDonough and JT Miller. And I believe they saw, but I'm pretty sure I don't remember their term, but I believe one of them had an extra year, but they got those guys signed too.
Mm-hmm.
I'll double check, but I believe it was McDonough.
Looking back on that trade, by the way, that honestly, I think Tampa fleeced them.
Because it was what? Brett Howden,
Libor Hayek, Vladislav Nemestikov, and like a bunch of draft picks.
Wow. Steve Yzerman, man. I hope he got a ring because he really built that roster, and then Julian just sort of fine-tuned it. All right, then let's talk about this.
It was McDonough, by the way, who had an extra year on his deal.
Okay, good. And then they flipped Miller for some picks because Tampa Bay. God damn it.
A first.
Yeah.
That ended up becoming Blake Coleman because they traded that pick. Wait, I always get his name wrong, but Shakur Madulin.
Is that the Russian defenseman that was at the World Juniors this year?
Yes.
That was the draft pick. That was the Vancouver pick.
You know what, though? Vancouver, JT Miller's worked out for Vancouver. I think that's a fair deal.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Here's the question, all right? Goaltending lost Toronto that game versus Winnipeg, the most recent one, right? Michael Hutchinson was not great.
Oh, really?
Wasted no time pulling him in that game. And then Freddie was not fantastic.
He had his moments, but yeah.
Yeah, but they and I think if you are the Leafs right now, the way you have to measure yourself right now is to the Winnipeg Jets, because they are right now the biggest obstacle they have in this division, especially if they get Matthias Ekholm. And what do Winnipeg have for sure? You can compare the top 6, and the analytics community can make fun of Mark Scheifele all they want. But goaltending rules in this league, and we know that. What is the goaltending solution here? Because I don't know. Does anyone know what is exactly up with Jack Campbell right now? Because they need to get another goalie stat.
I believe he is back. Last time I checked, they took him off IR. I'm going to double check on Cap Friendly right now just to be sure. He's off IR, so I guess he could play. No, I don't know what the solution is here. I saw what you put in the document. We'll bring it up, but you're in a tough situation because I think it was you who said this to me. I think whenever Toronto plays Winnipeg, they walk in knowing that their goalie could steal them a game like 9 times out of 10. Mm-hmm. I don't think Toronto feels that way.
No,
I don't feel that way. I think Connor Hellebuck is clearly is better than Frederik Andersen. I don't think that's up for debate. So what goaltender are you going to go out there and get that is a game changer in a way? Because then you're going to have 3 goalies on your roster, and which is fine, right? But what does that do for you for the rest of the season?
I'll tell you this: it makes sure Michael Hutchinson never touches the ice again, which is invaluable for them.
But they put themselves in that situation already where they had 3 goalies and had to put one through waivers and then lost one. Like you have to find a cheap goaltender who fits the cap because they're already in cap issues. And you have to find a goaltender that is not necessarily a game changer, but someone who is decent, bare minimum.
I think 2 things. And I've said it before in a joking way, but we look back on the Jordan Binningtons of the world. We look back on the James Reimers of the world. Do you give Joel Wall a chance?
No.
No? Why not?
No. Because
I mean, like, for the Rivermen, Jordan Binnington didn't have fantastic numbers, and then they just gave him a chance. I'm not saying he's going to be Jordan Binnington, but I'm just saying there's that option in terms of the cost.
Binnington didn't just come with he came in January for a team that was already in 31st place and had nothing to lose.
Well, but I think Binnington was a different situation. Like, what is it that we're looking like? The question in Toronto is, what is it that we're looking for Toronto in terms of goaltending? Like, what asset are you bringing in? Something that is a rental, something that is for the rest of the season, or something that you can say at the end of the season, hey, well, he'll be a UFA at the end of the year, but you know what? Freddie Anderson's up. We're probably not going to bring him back, and someone has to play with Jack Campbell. Like, is that what we're looking for?
This is the question, okay? And this is, at the end of the day, this is all that matters. Is this the best chance that this team has had to win a Stanley Cup?
Chris Johnson said that last year too when we went to 31 Thoughts.
But that was then. Look at the league now.
No, but that's the question I'm asked. But when you get into game 1 of the playoffs, who is going to play your games?
That's it. If at this point you have to make the decision, do you just get, because they need a third goal. Listen, I know this is Kyle Dubas' job. We can look at it and say there are financial issues here. Well, that's him and Sheldon Pridham's. That's him and Brandon Pridham's problem to figure out.
Right.
They cannot go into the playoffs with Hutchinson as a third goalie. That cannot happen. And I'm really annoyed because I thought of this the other day, and I listened to the Steve Dangle podcast, and what does Adam Wilde suggest? He brings up Jonathan Bernier, who I had on this goddamn document. I'm annoyed about that because he is at worst, a backup goalie at that level, which is, listen, everyone laughs right now at the Canadians for their goaltending situation, aka the money that's into it, right?
Right.
But they have a quality backup. And if you're the Leafs, obviously you can't pay $4 million for a backup goalie.
No.
But if you can get $1 million or $2 million for a good third goalie, or you make a big deal, and I mean a big deal here that involves moving Freddie to try and get a guy who's better. Now the question is that a guy like Antti Ranta? Maybe. Is it a guy I don't know exactly at this moment what Darcy Kemper's health concerns are right now, but I mean, that is the question, because if you are uncertain about goaltending, which I feel like the fan base is right now, if the fan base feed that narrative and players start playing a different way when they are not sure about the goaltender behind them, and that's what was so special about what Hutchinson did for Colorado. It wasn't his play, it was that Colorado, and we saw this in the game against the Oilers. The reason that Hutchinson got that shutout was not because of Michael Hutchinson. It's because of the team in front of him. Right.
So, but the way they played against Winnipeg, or the game, what am I, I don't know. I think they've played different in front of Michael Hutchinson compared to last year. Because in last year, it was an absolute joke the way they played it. And we've talked about it on the podcast. Every time they played in front of Michael Hutchinson, it was like they forgot how to play hockey. It's like, well, we need to focus on the defense. Well, you could barely do that because your defense wasn't competent, and then you just forgot how to play offense. Right? So
yeah.
I have another option at goaltending.
Sorry, let me just say this.
Okay, go on.
The issue is Hutchinson is now at a point, and we saw this in the Winnipeg game, that it doesn't matter how the Leafs play, those goals should not have gone in.
Correct.
And there is nothing Toronto themselves can do about it. I think that
100%.
is the the big problem there. And sorry, what are you going to say, Dan?
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the other options that Toronto may have for UFA goalies that may, do something, and they're around the same price point, well, cheaper than Jonathan Bernier. And bear with me because I know that they're on pretty bad teams, but they have shown to be a bit consistent.
Okay.
All right, so there is a Carter Hutton, a Linus Ullmark, which Linus Ullmark's numbers for Buffalo,
He's hurt.
not that bad.
Hallmark I can do. Hutton, no.
Yeah.
No.
For 700,000,
If you say Chris Drieger,
he has a .914, and he's played 8 games so far this year, and this team's not going
Chris
anywhere.
That's not Chris Drieger
This is Scott Wedgwood
for Tampa, right? Or
for the Devils.
Oh, he's in New Jersey. Yes.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah.
World Junior legend.
who?
I remember he wore green pads for the World Juniors because he just didn't want to change his Plymouth Whalers.
Has Blackwood been hurt, and that's who we're going with here?
Because the thing is, they also have Aaron Dell that they've been playing, so they've been shuffling between the 3 goalies.
Who they stole, by the way. Okay, who? We still have the Habs to talk about, by the way. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, that was the guys. Those were the guys.
It was Blackwood. Sorry.
Wedgwood.
No, Wedgwood.
Yes. I know that's even confusing.
I don't want to be that guy, but I don't think the Leafs need to bet on the guy who's played 8 games.
Okay. Well, he's been in the league a while.
No, it's an option. And then maybe the answer is Chris Drieger. In that case, though, if you're the Panthers, and if Kyle is willing to give up the top prospect, and I'm not saying you trade Sandin for Chris Drieger, but if there's a package there that you can try and do Liljegren.
Philip Hollander in the draft pick.
So I'm not very familiar with Philip Hollander. What is that guy's ceiling?
From what I've read, he could be a middle 6 guy. That's what I've read. I don't know.
He was a safe pick in the end of the second round.
This doesn't say much. He was the Penguins' 3rd best prospect, and I know that doesn't say much because they don't
Samuel
have,
Poulin and friends.
They trade them all, so it's hard.
Right, that's why. But he'll be in NHL. I don't think that's ever been up for debate.
Okay. I mean, hey, the Panthers have not been afraid to just sort of get assets. Really, I mean, we saw that with the Trocheck deal. Maybe that's an option. And I mean, if we talk about cap situation, Drieger is up.
Yeah. It'll be tough, and you have to make sure you re-sign him.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
I know
a
he's an
Gorgiev
RFA, but
situation there?
Sorry?
Like a Gorgiev where they don't have to trade him, but he's a young, quality goalie.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just still we're throwing out options. It's it's difficult. I think that discussion has proved it's difficult. But you know what? One good thing is, as fans and as podcasters, I hate that I just call myself a podcaster. This trade should come sooner rather than later because of the Leaf schedule.
Yeah,
which could help. Okay, anything else we want to mention about the Leafs presser, forwards, anything they could look at, goaltending, anything else at all?
no, nothing from me.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Mark Bergevin, our good friend. Mr. Burge. Never know what he's going to do. Never.
Marky Mark.
Mark Burge. Okay, so let me get up cap friendly quickly because the tail is first.
While you look for cap friendly, can you put your cap on?
The one I just took off.
Yeah.
Why?
Put on your cap friendly cap.
Okay.
They should come out with those.
Which
They
one?
they really should.
The mint one. I didn't see that one in a while. Check out the YouTube. Check out the mint hat.
Yeah, man.
The Victor Mete hat.
You know what, Daniel? You're right. They really should make a cap friendly cap. I would buy it.
I think a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
How many people use that site? Okay, the Montreal Canadiens. I have no idea how projected cap works because at first the Athletic article had it about $4 million for the Canadiens. Now yesterday it was 100,000. Now it's up to 3.5. I don't know. First off, Ben Sherratt, we know now, got surgery on his wrist and will be out at least 6 to 8 weeks. Mark Bergevin said it looks like 6. So he will be back before the end of the season, which does punch a hole in the LTIR stuff. Also, Paul Byron's just been put on waivers. He cleared as well today, so that's good. So more cap space to be cleared there. So Bergevin, yeah, we talked about it earlier. He did say that he is not planning on actually boosting up the defense, which I still just don't believe. Now, if Ekholm isn't an option, though, I wonder what else they could be looking at, because some people have suggested maybe a puck mover. And so what I was thinking about, I don't know the pure extent of his ability because he is injury prone, but, and I'll show this to Daniel first because you would know a lot more than I would. And there are already some Finns on the team. I wonder if they could look at a Sami Vatanen, who I believe has his career is points per game, I think, is something like 0.4, which is, for a defenseman, I think that's around what Petrie gets. The only question is his health. As you remember, he was hurt when he was acquired by the Carolina Hurricanes last year.
Yeah, I think Sami Vatanen fit perfectly for this team. He's been an excellent puck mover. He's been a guy that he'll stick with the team in a way that he'll know his role. I think that's been the biggest thing for him because when he was in Anaheim, he was kind of like, the power play specialist, a guy that could put on the third pair, but still get, meaningful minutes on the special teams. But I think it really fell off for him when he went to New Jersey because he was expected to be that top 4 guy that, because of the Devils' depth, he was sometimes being on that top defensive pair. And I think I absolutely have that kind of concern as well. Because when he went to Carolina, I think there was that expectation that he was going to shine again because he didn't have so much responsibility anymore. But again, the injuries kind of were here and there. But it's another guy where I think the Devils kind of picked up to just see where they were going to be in the season. But I expect them to be sellers. And I think that they're just going to see what they can get for Vatanen because they didn't really get a whole lot. They got 2 bottom tier prospects and a 4th for him at the deadline. I think that they're just going to see what they can get for him before he walks. So I think Montreal is going to get a better price than Carolina.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I know you don't think, I think we all think Marc Bergevin is lying about not doing anything. I think most GMs, when they do the press conference, aren't telling the 100% the truth. But do you think that, and he's done this in the past, do you think he's more inclined to make depth moves than go out and make a bigger addition, let's say like Ekholm? Because I don't necessarily think of Vatanen in the same way I think of Ekholm. I can see Vatanen being more of a depth piece than a guy who's going to slot into your top 4.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm thinking about it, right? And Montreal's top 4, right, is obviously Weber, Petrie. Are you going to displace those guys? Not really. Edmondson has been staple to Petrie, and it's been working really well. And then it's been Ben Sherratt and Weber, which I think a lot of people would like to break up.
I think in terms of smooth skating and filling in a guy who kind of needs a new sense of scenery and it's similar money, do you think Montreal will look to a Brandon Montour?
No.
Why not?
Listen. I've all of a sudden gotten in love with the Vatanen deal, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
And again, I'm just going to sound terrible here. I don't know a lot about Montour either. What I know about Sammy is this. I was watching some highlights of his, and I see a lot of point shots, naturally, because he's a defenseman. I've been looking at Montreal's power play, which has been all of a sudden a lot better. Attaboy, Alex Burrows, let's go. What I've noticed is the unit that actually has Jeff Petrie on it, that's the Kotkaniemi one, is lights out. Their other unit starts to struggle a bit. And the big issue there is sort of working the back of it and trying to straddle the line has been Shea Weber, who we know the big shot and the physicality, but his leg speed's never been great. And I wonder if a guy like Vatanen, who is right-handed as well, I believe, but he plays the left and the right side, does he not?
Mm-hmm. He's naturally a righty, but he plays the left as well.
I think it would be a really, really good fit that way because he could slot in with Shea Weber, and then you give Romanov, who likes to go on a skate, give him the partner in Ben Sherratt, break up that line, give all pairing a bit of foot speed, and it boosters the other side of the power play. So that's just, I think Vatanen would be a better fit than Montour. That, and it's just, I think we have some players you look at where you think, Yeah, he's been good in Buffalo, but there are also people. There's the Buffalo stench of, yeah, but he's been on Buffalo,
He hasn't been good in Buffalo though.
which is a bad sign.
It's you need to change the scenery a bit.
Like Martin Marincin couldn't crack Edmonton's defense back in the day. Was he really going to be a great and we see where he is for the Leafs? I don't think he's touched an NHL game, has he?
No.
It's
Nope.
a damn shame, but
I
There's
have
a
another
reason.
option. There's another option. There's someone that we didn't look at, and he's just quietly had an amazing, well, not amazing, but like a really solid season.
who?
And I'm gonna say his last name wrong,
Okay.
so you guys can correct me.
Yeah.
He's on Arizona.
Oh.
Jordan Osterel.
Australia?
Oh, that's not the
Australia.
guy. That's not the guy I thought you were going to say at all.
Who do you thought I was gonna say?
I thought you were going to say Nick Jarmelson.
No, that's too much money. So that's why I thought
They
like
don't need that. They need, I think at this point, the steady Eddie defenseman is not what they need.
no, they want
No.
the risk taker.
I think they need another puck mover. By the way, I was quickly getting up some Twitter to see some stuff. On his media call today, Buffalo GM Kevin Adams said he's looking at adding an AGM where the Sabres have permission to speak to Jason Carmanos, most recently in Pittsburgh. He and Adams have a long history. No, I don't. Australia may be better, but not Yalmerson. No, not at all. And you know, another side of it for Montreal is I remember Darren Dreger tweeting, you know what, look for the Habs to do something because stop me if you've heard this before. They have a lot of draft picks. They have their first, their and Tampa Bay's second. How the hell did they get Tampa's second? Hold on a minute. Let me just click on the details of how the hell they got this pick because what? Oh, they moved back. That's why. Okay,
Okay.
that's weird. So a first, 2 seconds, 3/3, 3/4, 3/5, a sixth, and a seventh.
It's a lot.
Use the picks, Mark. You get Vatanen for that.
Yeah.
And he's only
for
making
sure.
$2 million. Like, I think, man, I should be a GM. I think Vatanen's the move now.
He's
I
the
think
guy.
Sammy Vatanen's the move.
Is he this part of the season's Tyler Toffoli watch?
I hope. It doesn't sound like there's been a whole lot of talk with him either around the trade front. It feels like it's been very quiet.
He needs to kind of rebuild a bit of that value.
Who, Sammy Vatanen?
Yeah. It was just kind of weird that I always forget he was on Carolina. Carolina.
Like I don't think his what did he get traded for last year? Because I don't think that you're getting
2 bottom tier prospects and a 4th.
like I don't know if I think the price is lower. Like his point totals, and I know he's a defenseman, so it's a little bit different. But I think they've significantly dropped off. Like he has 3 points in 16 games. Last year he had 23 points in 47 games in the regular season. Like I think he's a good addition, and it doesn't help that he's playing on New Jersey, right? And they haven't been the greatest of teams this year. I think if you put him on Montreal, we're having a different conversation, especially if you're putting him next to Shea Weber, or you're putting him next to Romanov, or you're putting him next to Ben Sherratt. We're having a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think – I think you're right, Adam, that because you have those plethora of picks, it's going to be easier to get him. I don't necessarily think his value is what it was last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna see if this was correct.
Don't forget the Devils, who have only just won their first home game in 10 games, by the way.
Right. Like they were both Buffalo and New Jersey were on bad losing streaks.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I mean, New Jersey, I still give them a bit of the upper hand, but both bad. What's with the Hudson River?
Sorry?
What's with the Hudson River?
I don't know, man.
Buffalo, New Jersey, Rangers are kind of, but Islanders are somehow the best.
Did you say the Rangers are kind of on there?
I mean, they're kind of, they're kind of just there.
just
I'm
there.
not big on geography, so I couldn't tell you.
No, I mean, in terms of like the Hudson River teams like surrounding it, like all the New York State and New Jersey based teams.
Isn't it weird to think that New York and Buffalo are in the same state?
Sometimes.
Sometimes it is, yes.
Look at New York City and you're like, oh my God. And then I don't mean to insult them, but you look at Buffalo and like, oh my God.
They're great outlets though.
That is true.
First time I went to the Cheesecake Factory
Was in Buffalo.
was in Buffalo, yeah.
I also want to get your guys' thoughts on Mr. Carey Price, who has played his 700th career game. I believe he's one of 6 current goaltenders to do it. It feels like he has been around for so long, but 600 games. We don't hear about games played a lot for goalies. I think only 3 of them have ever played 1,000. I want to say Marty did it, Berder, Lou did it. I don't know if Patrick Waugh did, but I know he played till he was 35. I'm going to double check it. Alex, 700 games.
Yeah, I mean that's especially for a goalie. I feel like that's you made a good point there. It's not, we don't talk about games played for goalies a whole lot, but I think 700 is a really big number. I mean, getting up there in numbers is impressive for a goalie anyways. And he has been, and I know the last bit after before the recent games has been a weird stretch of games, but like he is an elite goalie. There is no question about it. And like how many records does he have? Like we had this discussion before, I think on one of like the original pop quizzes, you asked me if he has the record for certain Canadians records, and he had most of them. I think there was one that he didn't have.
It's I think the only record he doesn't have for goaltenders is shutouts, because Hainsworth is like 75. Daniel.
It's weird that he's already played 700 games to me.
Yeah.
Because it's just one of those players that when I was a kid, when I was little, that I just remember watching him in the World Juniors, and I remember him, splitting time with Cristobal Huet, and then suddenly he's considered like a veteran, which is something to say. It's the same thing as Ovechkin, where it's just these are fixtures of the game. These are guys that have really been those generational talents that kind of define like these guys are the faces of the league. And I certainly would put Carey Price there, that he's just been so consistent that I know that there's a bit of criticism there, here and there now, but I still think he's an amazing goalie. I think that the legacy of him, like just being in Montreal for what they've had for their history of goalies, is just, he's up there.
Mm-hmm. By the way, his career save percentage is a .917. Like, that's pretty damn good. And by the way, Waugh 1,029, Luongo 1,044, Berder 1,266 games played.
Oh, it's a lot of games.
Yeah, he
like,
never
left. I think we sometimes, and we don't realize this until after they're retired or they're gone from your team, that especially with a team like Montreal, who is one of like the original teams in the NHL, we don't realize how good someone is until we've lost it, which is is a very cheesy saying, but I think it applies here, right? Because I think as you age, I think we forget about as a player ages, we forget about how good they were in their earlier years or in their prime. And the fact that he's played 700 games should say a lot. And for such a historic franchise.
Most games played in the franchise, most wins. The record for single season wins. The only goalie to win the Hart, the Vezina, the Jennings, the Lindsay, won the Lou Marsh. Listen.
You forgot one more.
What's that?
The only goalie to win Adam's Hart.
Exactly. My favorite player of all time. World Junior Gold, World Cup of Hockey, Olympic Gold. Listen. We're a lot of people, he's, because of the position he's in this team, he's always the first one to be blamed. But you know what? In this era, there has not been a goalie that has been ridden more than Carey Price, and that has had to have been the guy. Lundqvist is second there, but at least the Rangers had some deep runs. One that should not have been deeper than Montreal's, but Chris Kreider will forever have a black stain in my view. Carey Price, congratulations, and he is getting the start again tonight. So he's been on the heater. His save percentage, I think, last month was an 898. It's up to a 909 so far, which is not amazing in the grand scheme of things, but the way that he's very quickly climbing back up.
For the Canadian division?
For the Canadian division, man. The fact that he went below 900 to around league average in a month, I think you can tell how well. And he was the reason they won in Winnipeg. It was the other day. He was lights out. Yeah. Okay. I think that is everything, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I think we're good. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, because of course you did, you should definitely check out the YouTube portion to see all our beautiful faces and me putting my hat off and on for about the past hour and a half. Check out Daniel's stuff for the Hockey Writers and the Eye Opener. Nathaniel, what was it? What was your new piece called again?
Nathaniel Brooks. He's a coach for the Rams men's hockey team.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. It was so good. It's above the sports issue stuff because it was Will just saw it and was like, that's it. It's more impressive than I tried to think of a royal family reference.
This is it. This is it. You know how it's this ain't it, Chief? This is it, Chief.
This is a very good article.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it is.
Be sure to check out Alex's blog, my YouTube channel, Pab Stuff. You love to see it.
And your piece.
Halfway report cards are coming soon.
And your piece in the eye opener.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's fine.
We're sharing that on the social media.
That's really cool, by the way. Will just sent me the link in Twitter DMs, and it's really cool to actually see it. Okay. Awesome. Check VoiceAd. Thank you as always for being a fantastic platform for the show. If you're on Spotify or podcast app for iOS, check us out. Leave a 5-star review. If you're the 2-star person, we want to have a chat. Have a real chat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
We're gonna look as disappointed in you as Queen Elizabeth was at Charles's thingy when he became the Prince of Wales. Just.
Okay.